User. Alright. Let's have a deep chat about a fascinating piece of literature today, a conversation record titled, A Mind Undisturbed is a Treasure. I want us to dig into why the ancients believed that an undisturbed mind is the true treasure. Because some of the discussions in it about sleep and the potential of the mind, honestly, they really challenge my imagination. Assistant. That's right. Its core concept is very direct. It starts by saying that the true treasure of the world isn't gold or silver. It's an undisturbed mind. An undisturbed mind. Exactly. Then it says that the source of this disturbance comes from the most fundamental afflictions within us, which are the ones we constantly hear about. Greed, anger, delusion, arrogance, and doubt. User. Okay. Greed, anger, delusion, arrogance, and doubt. But the text uses a very strong word. It says disturbance leads to poverty. This can't just mean a lack of money in the bank, can it? How does it relate to poverty? Assistant. That's a great question. The poverty mentioned here is not material. It refers to a depletion of spiritual energy, a state of exhaustion, both physically and mentally. User. The poverty of energy. Assistant. Exactly. You can imagine that if your mind is like a monkey, constantly being dragged around by these afflictions, wishing for this one moment, angry about that one, the next won't all your energy be consumed by this internal friction. That's right. So the text says that for such people, no matter what they do, their efforts are twice as hard for half the result. Farmers can't turn their fields back. Students can't study well, because the most valuable spiritual resource is wasteful. User. I completely relate to this point. The story about the master's mother in the text left a deep impression on me. It says her mother was an excellent cook. Cooking was basically instinctual for her. Yet one time, she was so distracted that she threw a clover cat into the pot and sleep. Assistant. Yes, that sounds absolutely incredible. This is an extreme example, but it illustrates the point most clearly. An otherwise highly experienced person, while doing the most familiar task, can make such an absurd mistake simply because their mind is disturbed. So the core of this story is to highlight that key concept. Focus the mind on one point, and nothing is impossible. User. Focus the mind on one point, and nothing is impossible. But the focus mentioned here seems different from our usual understanding. The text uses the example of a scientist who, while walking and pondering a problem, either bumped into a tree or chased after someone else's carriage, even using the carriage body as a blackboard to write down his formula. Doesn't that sound like he was very focused on his research? Assistant. Laughs. I can picture that scene. The carriage owner must have thought he met a lunatic, but from the perspective of this ancient text, that is precisely unhelpful focus. User. Why? Assistant. Because what he was doing in that moment was walking, right? But he wasn't doing a good job of walking. True focus is living in the present. When walking, fully experience the act of walking. When thinking, go into the study and concentrate on thinking. By being divided doing two things at once, he didn't walk well. And his research might have been interrupted because the carriage drove away. He lost both. User. This is truly a wake-up call for us modern people. The multitasking we highly praise today is exactly this state, isn't it? As if handling more things at once makes us more capable. Assistant. It is. But we pay a price for it. A student in the text shares that if he can make a video in one go, he can finish one in a day. But if he gets interrupted by a message or a phone call, once that creative flow is broken, he says it's very difficult to get it back. His mind just goes blank. User. I get that. I totally resonate. Sometimes I'm writing an important email, choosing my words carefully. When a notification pops up, I open it, reply to a message, and when I turn back, that precise wording, that flowing train of thought, is just gone. Assistant. That's exactly it. The ancients said. The second effort declines. The third effort is exhausted. Inspiration and vital energy are wasted just like that. This is similar to what we now call the flow state once it's broken. It's hard to return. User. That is completely the meaning. Speaking of the enemy of focus, Every day we enter a state that seems to be the least controlled and most scattered. Sleep. Right? Laughs in our dreams. Our minds run wild. Isn't that the extreme of disturbance? But it sounds like the ancients' view on this might be completely different from ours. The text cites the example of Duke Zhao of Qin, who listened to the Wei Yang reforms for so long that he fell asleep sitting there. Another example is ancient soldiers. They wore armor weighing tens of kilograms, and putting it on or taking it off could take an hour or two, requiring assistance. User. Wow, that complicated? Assistant. So when confronting the enemy on the front lines, it was impossible to take off the armor and lie down to sleep. They could only lean against a wall or weapon and doze off. User. I see. Wow, this really overturns my perception. Don't we modern people all seek deep sleep? All the health information tells us that sleeping soundly and deeply counts as good sleep. Yet this text suggests that sleeping so soundly you could be carried away without knowing it is actually a loss of spiritual awareness. Assistant. Correct. This is where it most challenges conventional wisdom. From its viewpoint, sleeping too deeply means your spiritual awareness has become dull. Conversely, the state of sleeping relatively lightly, where you can wake up immediately at the slightest disturbance, represents a mind that is sharp and powerful. User. Wait, so the ideal state isn't getting good sleep, but not sleeping? Are you saying being completely without sleep? Isn't this the plot of a science fiction novel? Modern medicine tells us that sleep deprivation causes severe brain damage and can even be fatal. Is this text suggesting that those who achieve spiritual enlightenment can simply ignore this physiological law? Assistant. Your skepticism is very important. The not sleeping here is not what we understand as using sheer willpower to stay awake. It refers to a higher state of being, like the Buddha, where the mind is perpetually in a state of extreme clarity. User. Clarity. Assistant. Yes, for them, this clarity itself is the deepest form of rest, and its quality is higher than the rest we get through sleep. Therefore, they simply don't need sleep, which is a rather low efficiency form of rest. This completely overturns our view of equating rest with sleep. User. Okay, clarity is rest. This concept leads us to some even more mystical claims. The text mentions that ancient emperors practiced a state called lying down but not sleeping. The body is resting, but the mind remains awake. Doesn't this sound like insomnia? Many people suffer terribly from that. Assistant. That is the difference. Insomnia is when you want to sleep but can't, and your mind is still racing with random thoughts. That is a painful disturbance. But lying down but not sleeping is an active, conscious choice. It requires a very profound level of concentration, what we commonly call concentration or focus. It's more like, imagine a lake that is perfectly calm and still, without the slightest ripple. Because of this stillness, it can clearly reflect the clouds in the sky and the trees on the shore. Everything around is visible in minute detail. That's the feeling. The mind is most powerful in this state. User. So what special effect does entering this lake-like state of calmness have? Assistant. The effect is huge. In this state of $D, ing dollar, they can achieve a realm called spiritual light illuminates everywhere. The mind is like a beam of light that can transcend the physical limits of the body and shine on distant places. User. Wait, this leads to another subversive idea about the saying, a scholar need not leave his door to know all that happens under heaven. So you mean this saying is not what we thought, reading 10,000 books and traveling 10,000 miles to understand the world, relying on books and newspapers, but a form of telepathy or clairvoyance? Assistant. Precisely. User. Heavens. This completely subverts the impression this idiom had in my mind. Assistant. That is the case. It refers not to indirect knowledge, but to direct knowing. The text provides many examples to make this sound less like mere fantasy. For instance, ancient famous doctors, they studied medical principles not entirely through dissecting corpses or reading books. User. Then how? Assistant. They had the ability to internal view. They could close their eyes and clearly see the functioning of their own internal organs, meridians, and blood circulation. They could also use the same method to see through a patient's body and accurately locate the illness. User. That is astonishing. Not just doctors, but even wise ministers who governed the country, like Bao Gong and Cao Jun, possessed this ability. I thought they relied on an intelligence network, like in the TV shows. Assistant. Think about how underdeveloped ancient transportation and communication were. Relying on the relay system to transmit messages could take months for a round trip or carrier pigeons. User. Right. Assistant. The text also says that carrier pigeons are actually very unreliable and can easily be caught by eagles while flying. So, the truly wise officials relied on this ability of the mind to gain insight, to directly perceive what was happening in distant places, and thus make the most timely and wisest judgments. User. From medicine to politics. It sounds like this ability was almost standard equipment for the top elites in ancient times. What about on a deeper spiritual level? Assistant. This part is explained very profoundly in the text using the Buddha as an example. It says that when the Buddha faced sentient beings with stubborn temperaments who were difficult to teach, he didn't immediately try to preach grand principles to them. User. They wouldn't listen anyway, right? Assistant. They wouldn't listen at all. He used a more fundamental power called great compassion. User. Great compassion sounds abstract. How did he specifically do it? Assistant. It was by unconditionally extending help when sentient beings were in their greatest pain and helplessness. For example, during a famine, when everyone was starving, the Buddha might manifest food for them to eat. When a plague was rampant, he might transform into herbs to heal them. He spent countless lifetimes accompanying and saving them repeatedly when they needed help the most, thereby slowly establishing an unbreakable trust, reliance, and dependence in the depths of their subconscious. This is a profound connection that transcends language and logic. User. Yes, the story of the group of 5 monks is the best proof. These 5 practiced with the Buddha earlier, but later left him due to a disagreement in philosophy. When the Buddha attained enlightenment and came back to them, the 5 even conspired and agreed not to acknowledge him, to put him in his place. What happened? Assistant. When the Buddha's form appeared, their previous vow vanished in an instant. They all involuntarily stood up and respectfully greeted and served him. Why such a huge contrast? User. Because the deep trust the Buddha had established by sacrificing for them throughout past lives had formed a massive habitual tendency. This force was like a flood, far exceeding their small notion of ignoring him in the present moment, instantly crushing their resolve. Assistant. This also shows how powerful this transcendent space-time connecting force is. That brings up the most fundamental question. If the ancients truly and commonly possessed these abilities, which seem like superpowers to us now, from internal viewing and clairvoyance to establishing this deep mental connection, why have they disappeared? Why have we modern people almost completely lost these abilities? User. The text provides a very direct answer, one that modern people might find a bit hard to swallow. What is it? Assistant. Excessive enjoyment. User. Enjoyment. Wait, that sounds counterintuitive. Isn't the entire development of our modern society aimed at pursuing a more comfortable, convenient, and enjoyable life? Yet you're saying this actually caused us to lose our potential. Assistant. Yes, that is the paradox. All these mental potentials require a state of extreme clarity as their foundation. An abundant food, comfortable and easy environments can very easily destroy this clarity. The text mentions that some countries once gathered children with extraordinary abilities and gave them the finest food and best living conditions. As a result, these children's abilities quickly disappeared entirely, because refined foods with too much oil, salt and sugar can make the mind turbid and sluggish. User. That reminds me of the scientist quoted in the text, Nikola Tesla. Assistant. Yes, Tesla once famously said, "All the chefs in the world are trying to poison me." People thought he was eccentric at the time, but he actually understood very clearly that fine dining would weaken his genius-like inspiration and creativity. He knew that to maintain that high level of clarity and sharpness, he had to be extremely disciplined regarding material pleasures. So by controlling his diet, he maintained a long period of creative peak. Assistant. That's right. But the text also points out that he was ultimately trapped by another kind of enjoyment, He wasn't greedy for food, wealth, or sex, but he was attached to his reputation. When his patents were stolen and his reputation was damaged, he still fell into tremendous affliction and suffering. This attachment to reputation is also a source of mental disturbance. User, reflecting on our discussion today, it truly feels like a fascinating journey. We started with a seemingly simple concept. Focus is a treasure hunt, discussed a completely new understanding of sleep, ultimately touching upon the astonishing potential of the human mind that has been almost forgotten in ancient wisdom. If we were to distill one core idea that runs through everything we discussed, it would undoubtedly be mental clarity. Whether it's the focus the mind on one point required for work, the lying down but not sleeping sought for rest, or the extraordinary ability to perceive all things, the foundation lies in maintaining the mind's clarity and tranquility. And all disturbances, afflictions, excessive material enjoyment, and even attachment to reputation are the greatest enemies of this clear state. Assistant. The text tells us that these potentials were lost due to disturbance and enjoyment. This truly makes one reflect. In our modern world, filled with endless distractions and comforts, from constantly buzzing phone notifications to easily accessible fine food and entertainment are, we are unknowingly using these pleasures every day to exchange for, or even suppress, some deeper and more powerful potential within our minds. This is perhaps a question worth pondering for every one of us.